but also in the context of what we're hearing in relation to CAMHS across the country. And we know as deputies that there have been long-term problems in relation to CAMHS for many, many years. And I think, Minister, if anything, this is an opportunity to really step in and to make the changes that are needed long-term. All the way back in July 2020, the Special Committee on COVID-19 met with Jigsaw and other stakeholders to discuss mental health impact of the pandemic. And we heard about the hardship that young people were experiencing, primarily because of their isolation and the disruption from school and their isolation from their friends. We've discussed the pressures that they were under going back to school, the Leaving Cert pressure in particular, one that continues to this day, as we need a resolution in relation to the Leaving Cert for this year, as this group have been disrupted just as much as groups before them. If I could highlight one group in particular, young people with epilepsy who need a backup system for the Leaving Cert, who, if they have a seizure immediately beforehand, are often required to repeat the whole year in order to do the exam. It really is important that that get resolved. But more specifically, in my role as a spokesperson for equality for Fine Gael, I've raised the ongoing particular concern of mental health for young people in the LGBTQI plus society, members of society. And I'm thinking of, young people in particular who were living at home throughout the pandemic, who didn't have their usual outlets, to the capacity to see their friends, who may or may not have come out. If they had come out, may not have been welcome as such, and lived perhaps in particular difficulties where that hadn't been accepted by their family. And I think that's really important. I just want to note as well the ongoing commitment from the government to ban, as France did, I think yesterday, conversion therapy. That is a commitment in the programme for government, and I know it's being worked on, but it does need to be cemented and just simply done. I'd also want to highlight the particular mental health challenges and access to services for young people in the travelling community and for those in direct provision, who, in addition to having other structural difficulties through education and that, and we know that we've spoken about that here in this House, have also the effect of being othered or bullied in different ways. And I think it's important that access to services is made particularly easy where there are, have been, and we know, documented additional difficulties. I met with a group today about online safety, and I know the legislation on the Online Safety Commissioner is progressing through the House, but I think it's essential that there be a complaints mechanism within that legislation, that it is clear to young people who are flagging problems of bullying and other abusive material that they can see that it can be addressed and that it can be redressed through that mechanism, that when they flag problems that they will be taken seriously and addressed. Ciancorla, is there someone else or do I have more time?
There's somebody missing, so there's a bit of time left.
Okay. I had a gentleman in my own constituency contact me recently in the wake of the tragic death of Shane Lunny to share his own story, a story involving at least one hospital visit where he had to literally beg for support. He had to beg to be committed to the psychiatric ward while he sat in the hospital on suicide watch. He was discharged at 1:30 in the morning with no money, nowhere to go, and following that, at just 21 years of age, he ended up in a treatment centre for addiction issues, which is something. But now, at 3 years sober, those difficult days hopefully behind him, but he still has a daily struggle with chronic anxiety. And yet, despite that, he considers himself one of the lucky ones because he has been able to access treatment and appropriate treatment, ultimately, when he did need it, albeit his difficulty initially going to the hospital. He's exhausted, battling mental health issues, while having to continue to fight and advocate for himself, navigating long waiting lists, navigating the financial issues that come with going private, navigating the financial issues that come with being out of work because of mental health issues. And it isn't an acceptable standard for our country, and I don't believe that you think that is either, Minister, and I know that of your commitment to resolving it. The state has done very well in lots of different ways, with political stability, with economic stability, recovering through the pandemic, but mental health is one of those areas where we've never gotten this right, and we have an opportunity to really change that now and to put the investment into it. As my colleague Deputy Dillon said there, this pays for itself over time, whether it's perinatal mental health, whether it's youth mental health. We know there are particular moments of vulnerability in people's lives, and we know what the impact of failure to catch and treat that is. Youth mental health is particularly acute and particularly important. I think we're becoming much more aware of that as a community, as a society, as a parliament. I wish you every success, Minister, in what I know is your completely committed work to try to resolve as much as possible for our young people.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Pauline Tully is now sharing.